Welcome in. It is officially Tuesday, and the Patriots are now 9-4 after beating the Buffalo Bills in a game. We've never seen a game like this, Evan. I don't know if we'll see another game like this. I mean, we've had snow games, we've had freezing cold games. There's been elements games before. Never seen a game like this where the Patriots went out and ran the ball 46 times. I think it was 46, and threw it 3 times. And that's what happened tonight in a game that I'm sure if you're a fan, you're sitting at home screaming, throw the ball. Why won't he throw the ball? And they didn't. And it worked. And the Patriots squeak out a win, 14-10, a great win, 9-4 driver's seat in the AFC. I'll let you kind of get into everything you saw. And just for everybody wondering, Evan is in Buffalo right now. He just got out of the locker room. Bill Belichick had his little black jacket on. He was smiling. You know, this was one of Bill's greatest days. This is another notch on his belt, okay? And this goes down already, all of the chatter and the talk shows. Bill, what did Bill do? Bill won a game by only throwing it 3 times. It's another piece of his legacy. So Bill's probably the happiest guy on the planet. But again, he did what was needed to win this game, and we've seen it. We've seen them be maddeningly conservative a lot of times this year, and it's cost them games. And it felt like it could have cost them a game this time, but it didn't, and they win. And great win.
Yeah, I don't think you can take anything away from a few angles to this win. First and foremost, Bill Belichick will play you any way that is necessary to win a football game. If that means throwing the football 3 times, which some of the players up at the podium talking about how they've never, not even in Pee Wee football, David Andrews said when he was 6 years old, did they play a game where they only threw the ball 3 times. So we're talking about something that is totally unorthodox, outside the box, contrarian. If another coach does this, and not somebody with the job security and the resume of Bill
Right.
Belichick, then everybody their minds are completely going off the rails, especially if you lose. And I think a lot of other coaching staffs and a lot of other coaches that aren't Bill Belichick, they lose a game like that, and they could get fired, right? Their jobs are on the line. Bill has the job security to be able to go out there and potentially lose a game where you only throw the ball 3 times, because he knows that it's probably the best way for them to win. So you have to tip your cap off to the patience, to the strategizing, the chess match with the wind, and being able to handle the situation. The second thing I'll say, just from the players' side, this is a gritty football team. Right? This is a football team that's built to win in December and January. Buffalo is a pass-first offense with a defense that's finesse, that's lighter in personnel, that has 230-pound linebackers that everybody wants the Patriots to draft. And the Patriots came in here and they physically imposed their will and ran the football down Buffalo's throats. Even when the Bills were putting 10 guys in the box, they were running the ball down Buffalo's throats. So the Pats are a gritty bunch. They're a physical bunch. They're a very, very good defensive bunch. And Bill Belichick still has the balls, quite frankly, to call a game the way that they called it, because all of us in the press box are thinking, oh, here comes the play action, or here comes the one time they throw it, or this drive they're with the wind. They're finally going to spread it out and pass the football. And they never wavered. They had the strategy. Mac Jones pointed to it after the game and said they knew that if they won the turnover margin, they were going to win the football game, point blank.
I mean, and if N'Keal Harry doesn't actually try to head that ball into the corner of the goal, I mean, it looked like he was trying to hit it with his head. I have no idea what he's doing with his head looking out like that. A very bizarre. That could have been a big story there. The Bills got nothing going, really. So, I mean, again, the philosophy was right. Outside of that real gaffe there on that punt return where you had Harry and Olszewski returning the kick and it ticks off his helmet. Bills really didn't generate anything going, getting down the field. And the Patriots played the wind game well, just in terms of what they did. And they had it going, and they had the lead in the fourth quarter with the Bills going into the wind. And you saw how badly they missed that field goal attempt there. So, it was a strategic game. It's just when you play with a margin of error that small, like the Patriots were playing, this is the same thing that happened with the loss in Miami against Miami. you do one thing that you're not supposed to do late in the game, and that could turn the whole game on its head. And luckily, they made more plays than the Bills made to win this game down the stretch for sure. So,
Right.
yeah,
They you don't want to say they got lucky or they got away with one, because I think
no,
that's
they
not
didn't. That's not right.
treating it correctly, right? But with what they did was, again, they can play with this margin for error because they have Bill Belichick as their head coach. Maybe a guy like Sean McDermott could have done something similar, but you start talking about some of these other coaches around the league, they're thinking, if I call a game with only 3 pass attempts the entire game and we lose, the owner's calling me to his office the next day and I'm getting canned, right? I mean, that's got to be their mindset to a degree. And they were, with Bill Belichick, they're able to call a game that way and get away with that. And I think ultimately the Patriots knew that situationally they were going to be better in third down, red zone, at the end of the game situations there when the Bills were trying to go in to score to win the football game. They knew that they were going to be better, and they were basically counting on Josh Allen imploding to a degree. Now, I think that they thought they were going to get a game-changing turnover, a pick six or something like that put them in their own territory. They didn't end up getting that big of a play, but they were able to make the stops at the end in the red zone and hold Buffalo to 1 for 4 in the red zone. Besides, the one conversion was after the N'Keal Harry muff
The
punt.
play after it, exactly.
The other 3 trips into the red zone where they actually drove the football in there, they were able to hold them down and hold them to field goals or field goal attempts. So they basically counted on the fact that their defense was going to outsmart, outperform, out execute the Bills offense and Josh Allen in those very critical types of plays.
Yeah. I liken this a lot. I mean, again, if the Bills had stopped the run more effectively, the Patriots may have been forced to do things differently. But even in drives where the Patriots went nowhere, they went right back to it the next time too. They never wavered from their game plan. As you mentioned, it takes balls to do this. There's a lot of coaches who might have come out with the philosophy, we're going to run a lot tonight, and then maybe run 60% of the time or 65% of the time. It really, really, really takes some serious commitment to do it nonstop. And I hear you got announcements back there, Evan. You're muting yourself.
I don't
That's
know.
all good.
They're kicking somebody off the field. I have no idea what's going on. I think there might be some trespassers on the field right now. The people in Buffalo, look, it's the press box here is in a great spot because you're right on top of the fans, right? The stand, you're right in the stands. The only thing that separates you from watching this game, like the Buffalo fans in the stands, is a pane of glass, right?
They're right there.
They're right
there.
Yeah. And when the 4th down play happened and Josh Allen's pass fell incomplete and Miles Bryant batted it down to the ground, the look on the fans' faces, the utter just frustration and disdain that did we really just lose a football game where they threw the ball 3 times the entire game?
And that's
How
the
did
thing.
that happen?
It's such an own, and you talk about, if you read, I love, one of my favorite things doing, I've done this my whole media life. I love reading out of town papers. I love seeing what they're saying over there.
Oh, they're
and it
in
was
panic mode.
Panic mode.
Yeah.
All week long with this game. Like, God damn it. We had 1 year. There was 1 year that they let us have. And now they're here and people are saying they're going to win and they're going to win the division. And what happened? You know, we didn't even get to enjoy it for a year, and that's it. And it was total panic. And you could see every cutaway in the stands and this and that, just kind of like, oh, please, let's not lose this game, But going back to it, the commitment there to the run was incredible. Even when it wasn't working, it was like, no, we're going to do it again. And at times where you're like, as you said, well, this will certainly call for a pass or a play action, or it's 3rd and 4. And really, what are they going to do here? Just, run again and punt. And it was like, yep, they're going to run again and punt. That was, it's, call it stubborn, call it brilliant, call it whatever. They were not moving off of that. I liken it to a good analogy is just, you're a pitcher with a good fastball and you just keep throwing it until they hit it and they make you throw something else. And the Patriots just kept throwing fastballs and that was it. And wears you down. 220 plus yards. Great running by Stevenson. I thought making a lot out of a little on a lot of plays there for him. Obviously Harris with that big score there, when they're putting 10 guys in the box, you've only got one safety there. He gets through that line and he's gone. Honestly, I thought they were going to pop another one too, because it really looked like they were softening up the Bills D. As you said, I felt like either that Allen pick was coming or they were going to pop another one, because they were really, really, really pounding the ball there and finding space. And I thought they were going to get into the secondary with one more and maybe break free, with that. So all in all, good. Harris obviously went out with the hamstring, but they've got a bye now. So
he was he didn't end up talking. They cycled through a bunch of people really quickly, but he was in the interview room after the game, huge smile on his face, joking around with Ramondre Stevenson and Brandon Bolden. It looked like if he had a serious injury, he would not have been in there. Let me put it to you that way. So I think that he is good, but you look at the one thing other than the defense, I do want to get to the defense here and what they did schematically against Josh Allen. The one thing that you can take away, I think, from this game from a Patriots offense standpoint was some of the schemes that they were able to run in terms of the run game against this Bills defense. The Bills defense, I think one of the things that really causes them to struggle against the Patriots in the run game a lot of the times is that they are a 4-3 over G front. They run the same front every single week on first and second down, and they play their system and they play their hand, and you have to go out there and out execute and beat them. So early on in this game, the Patriots they had a lot of inside runs go absolutely nowhere, right? They were running into the teeth of the defense. Then finally that Nelson Aguilar end around, although it didn't gain, it wasn't an explosive play. I think it gained 8 or 9 yards or something like that. It wasn't a huge run. I can pull it up here. It only gained 6 yards, but that one threat of them actually running it on the outside like that really started to open up the entire box. And then they started, then they hit the toss right to Damian Harris. You get a great crack block from N'Keal Harry. You get Isaiah Wynn out on the pull. Jakob Johnson hits the force, and then you get the big run to Damian Harris. Once they ran the crack toss play, they started to use some different schemes inside, stuff like trap schemes or G lead plays in that later drive in the second half. And if you look at the things you're going to see on tape about this Patriots run game, that will certainly carry over to when the Patriots play the Bills in week 16 up in Foxborough. Being able to run those schemes again, I think will be successful for them again in a lot of ways. And look, at the core of it, and I know it drives the analytics people absolutely insane. They don't want to run the football. They don't care about running the football. The football is running the football is negligent or whatever you want to call it. It's less than zero. But when you talk about going out there and physically imposing your will on an opponent and running it right down their throats for 4 straight quarters and then upsetting them on their home field, that other locker room down there just now, that was a demoralized, defeated locker room, right?
Really?
Like where did these guys come from? Right, the evil empire. We thought that we blew up the Death Star. Right, we thought it was over. We thought that this was done. They had them on the ropes, right? And now they're back. And not only are they back, but they just came in here and they manhandled us. It wasn't even it wasn't our type of game, right? And I think in one respect, Buffalo will sell themselves on the fact that if we play their type of game, right? If it is a more pass happy, open type of game where the score does get into the high 20s or low 30s, then maybe they can win a football game like that against the Patriots. They can't beat the Patriots like this, right? They're not going to be able to beat the Patriots in the teens. That's going to be something that they're going to talk about as maybe the positive that they can take away is, well, this wasn't really a game, right? This was a once in a flash in the pan type of situation. But at the same time,
I mean,
watching the big brother come in here and beat you up one more time is
you're an outdoor team playing in the Northeast in a cold weather city. Like, you got to recognize that playing this brand of football, not one where you're throwing the ball 3 times, that's silly, but playing this brand of football is important in the later stages of the season. And you're playing these guys twice in December. So yes, you're not expecting 50-mile-an-hour wind gusts in the next game, but you are expecting having to play
great conditions.
It's not great conditions. You got to play physical types of games here. It's not ideal. You're not in a dome. You're not in a controlled environment where you can go out and sling it 50 times. And, we've seen other Patriots teams really use this to their advantage in the past. In December, Buffalo should be a team that, based just simply on geography, certainly not in the DNA and the style of their play, but based on geography, they should be able to handle this sort of stuff. For the Patriots too, huge coming off of last week where they got pushed around in the trenches, both sides of the ball a little bit. So they kind of needed this one to man up and feel a little better about themselves. Also
it was
because
crazy to watch the personnel that
and
Buffalo
six
had.
linemen. I mean, how many times they ran? I think I read it was 64% of the 64% of snaps. They had 6 linemen out there.
Right. The thing I think also was crazy was that Buffalo didn't even have the personnel to match the 6 lineman package. They don't have the bodies. They don't have the girth on the defensive line.
Not heavy enough.
So, right. So they're still going out there with Gregory Rousseau and Jerry Hughes and all these light edge players. And the Patriots are just kicking them out and kicking them out and kicking them out. And there's no answer to it, right? There's absolutely no answer to it. And that to me is really flummoxing because I talked to a lot of Bills fans, Bills reporters. I've somehow befriended a lot of these Buffalo people. I think they like the analytical approach and that I'm not too much of a homer. So I've actually had a lot of conversations with them on and off the air. And the cries here in Buffalo are actually for the Palucas to build a dome for their next stadium because they have Josh Allen and they have Stephon Diggs and they have a great pass defense. And this is a dome team playing in Western New York, which is bizarre, right? But that is truly the way that they are built. And this game tonight, watching their team lose a game like this, the cries for them to build a dome here are going to get louder and louder and louder. And these fans are going to want them to be the New Orleans Saints or the Atlanta Falcons or the Minnesota Vikings and have these games played inside so that they can run their offense and they can throw for 400 yards and have the game go their way. Because after a game like this, they are built like a dome team and they have no dome. Right. Nope. So it is interesting. I want to talk about the defense too, though, because it's very fun to talk about how the Patriots just basically bullied the little brother once again. But their defense, the Patriots defense, I thought threw a lot at Josh Allen, and Josh Allen actually, for the most part, threw the ball pretty well, even with the conditions.
My God, that arm, man. You know, that's where you see the arm talent. He had a couple sail on him, but my goodness, can he zip that ball downfield?
Yeah, it was really impressive. Belichick said it after the game how impressed he was with Allen's ability to throw the ball through the wind. Now, some of the things that they were able to do was they were showing a lot of different coverage looks. They were showing man pre-snap, dropping into zone, playing straight man-to-man a lot of this game, though. And I think a little bit more man-to-man than what I was expecting even. J.C. Jackson on Stephon Diggs. Adrian Phillips had Dawson Knox, Miles Bryant on Cole Beasley, and then the third receiver was taken by Jalen Mills, whether it was Emmanuel Sanders or Gabriel Davis. He took the third guy, and they were able to really go toe-to-toe with them for the most part. I thought Buffalo had some chances that maybe they didn't convert on in man-to-man situations, but for the most part, those guys battled and they did a good job, and they were able to really get after Josh Allen too with the pass rush, which was really, really the key. And whenever you're talking about good pass defense, you got to marry it together, right? It's not going to just be good coverage or just be a good rush. It has to be both. But I think the two things that really stood out were, first of all, in a lot of their zone schemes, they were able to keep them in the pocket, right? Keep Josh Allen in the pocket and force him to step up through the pocket to scramble or to extend rather than escaping to his left or right. And when they did escape to the left or right, did a really good job of shutting that down as well. But very limited options for Allen to escape out of the pocket. In man situations, for the most part, they spied him. He got out that one time. That one time on that last drive, he was able to get out Judon overcommitted and over pursued, and he was able to get out for a nice scramble. But for the most part, keeping him in the pocket, forcing him up through the pocket or to step up in the pocket was critical. Yeah.
There was a couple plays, and I know they highlighted on the broadcast, Van Noy kind of setting the edge, making sure he wasn't able to get outside, kind of keeping him in there. And there was just too many bodies for him to find those lanes to get moving. So that was really impressive. And I'm not surprised, given the weather, that they would opt to play a little bit more man here, because you're challenging somebody to make really good throws
Right.
in tougher conditions here. And again, in the whole "what did we learn" thing, it wouldn't be surprising to see the Patriots take a totally different defensive approach. In fact, you expect it when they face them in a couple of weeks here, in what's now pretty much a must-win game for Buffalo, if they want to stay in the division race, or if they honestly, at this point, the playoff picture is so tight here. They can't lose 2 games to the Patriots. So that's going to be a big one there. I know you wanted to hit defense. I wanted to quickly just touch on the flips. The other side of the coin to the running is Mac.
Yes.
And so
is that the first quarter stat line, or is that the whole game?
So, I mean, again, this is the only place that if we're going to quibble with how this went here, I understand this. You would not do this if you felt differently about your quarterback. So this still speaks to how they feel to a degree about Mac Jones and what he can do in pressure situations or tight situations. They'd rather minimize, the amount that he has to do and create an environment where, he's going to make fewer mistakes, or the game's not going to be in his hands.
Right.
Which is disappointing if you're like a let Mac cook sort of guy and they trust the guy and he's one of their better players, and he makes good decisions and you want to see him do that. This to me speaks to, Bill saying, kid's not fully ready yet for a game like this in a situation like this. So I'm taking the ball out of his hands, and whatever happens, happens. Now, again, if they weren't as successful running the ball, might he have had to mix it up? I don't know. And it could have just been a simple thing of, this is working, we're sticking with it. But I was borderline embarrassed for Mac, because to me, this spoke a little bit to lack of trust.
Yeah, look, I think there's 2 ways to look at it, and I think you hit both of them. And the game that it comes to mind, even though it wasn't quite as extreme as this one, but it was close, was that 2000. I want to say it was the 2019 NFC Championship game for Jimmy Garoppolo, where I think he threw it 8 times against the Green Bay Packers, and they won the game. If you're running the football like that, and the defense isn't making you throw the ball, and on top of that, your defense is getting the job done against their offense. Because look, if Buffalo goes up in this game, right, if they go up 17-14 late in the game, or if they're putting the Patriots offense in a situation where they had to get points, then I think the game is treated differently. I do think that you open up the passing game at that point. You're not going to lose the football game running it at 3rd and 8 and running the football all game long if you're down. So I think in a lot of ways they felt like they were ahead. They felt like the only way that the dam was truly going to break on them is if they had a bad turnover on offense and they wanted to protect the football.
But it's still so little. I mean, and you're talking, talking 3rd and 4, 3rd and manageable on simple, safe plays with a just quick out, and a sideline route or something that was safe. Just to run none of those, it was nope, just turn around and hand it off, turn around, a play action, something, nothing, just nothing. I mean, and again, I hate throwing trust, but it does say something that absolutely not. We're not putting you in that situation. I don't know whether maybe that first throw he made them change their mind.
The throw to John, who got away from him. He
floated it to John, and got away from him right away.
Yeah.
He sailed it, and they're thinking, he sails one of these over a receiver right into a DB's hands. And in a game like this, I just can't have it. So I don't know. Maybe they were really, really worried about him in the elements today.
I think it was a little bit, and you do have to wonder, okay, the Patriots have been practicing in a lot of these conditions over the last couple of weeks in Foxborough, right? Wind, rain, that type of look, very cold weather. So how has Mac looked in practice in those situations as well? Because that's the one great common thing about for the Patriots, or one great strategic thing, is that they practice in this weather. Maybe not 50-degree gusts, but they practice in a ton of this weather. So you get looks here. Now, look, in a couple of weeks, the Patriots after the bye play Indianapolis in a dome in Indy, right? Lucas Oil. Let's see if he comes out and throws the ball 35 times and throws it all over the yard against the Colts. Then I think that we can say, okay, well, in these types of games, they're going to be run first. They're going to lean on their defense and their running game and their 2 backs, and they're going to be able to win football games like that just fine. And when the weather calls for it and they're allowed to open it up, great. But ultimately, this is a bad weather football team. They play games in Foxborough, Massachusetts. They play games in Buffalo. They play games in New York against the Jets every single year as well, that maybe will hit later on in the season at other points in time. So at some point, you're going to have to put this game a little bit in Mac Jones's hands. He's not going to be able to win games like this very often. This was kind of, like I said at the top of the show, as great as this was, as fun as this was, as weird as it was, we are probably never going to see anything like this ever again. And that's that, right? So I think that's how much we have to approach it. But I can't disagree with you. As much as I want to push back on you and say, "Oh, he trusts him. He thinks he can throw it in these conditions," and we just didn't call for it. Sure, it definitely says something
This
about
is
the
a
quarterback.
clear example of, right, it's not just hasn't played in these types of environments where he hasn't. He's never seen weather like this in his life.
Right.
But on top of that, this is the difference in the arm talent, where a guy like Mac, and again, I think there's a little more arm strength to come as he gets a little older and stronger, but he's right now, he's dropping balls in there, and this isn't the condition to be dropping balls. We heard receivers this week talk about how when Mac throws it, it's soft as a pillow to catch. No, you need your Justin Herberts and you need your Josh Allens out there throwing 90-mile-an-hour rockets through the wind in order for the ball to get where it needs to go in a place like this. So I also, it's just Mac's style. He's a guy who kind of touches and floats balls into spots over defenders, and this wind would just eat up some of his passes, I think. So perfect storm, literally and figuratively, for Mac not being necessarily conditioned for this, but it's still a thing. If you run into weather again, you want to believe. I mean, I think
there's a difference though between snow and cold and a tornado, right? Or a windstorm or whatever you want to call it.
This is totally different.
Right.
But what would they have done if the Bills scored a touchdown in the 2 minutes there? At that point,
yeah, you have to throw it.
Would you just turn around and run?
No, you have to throw it. Now, the one thing I will say is I think for the most part, the win was pretty consistent. But even so, Belichick said after the game that it was swirling just a little bit. And you look at when the Bills were heading with the win, is because I think that was the biggest thing on Twitter that I was seeing in my replies and stuff like that, was people were going crazy of, well, when they're going with the win, why can't they throw the ball, right? When the wind's at their backs, why can't they throw the ball?
Well, that's where it gets away from you.
Right. So Josh Allen tried to hit. He had Stephon Diggs behind Juwan Williams wide open down the left sideline. And he tried to hit him, and he wrong shouldered the ball, and it kind of fluttered and changed directions late. And it went on. I mean, that was the game winning touchdown right there. Even the hands, and he dropped it because of the wind. So even though that going
another one on a back shoulder with JC Jackson in coverage, the ball just kept going.
Right.
He had a step. That ball is ball's there, and he's got him.
In the game.
Late in the game, and that floated on him too. It's actually harder to throw into the wind. I mean, to throw with the wind behind you, because that's where the balls take off on you. If you have the arm strength that Allen has, it actually is a slightly better to throw into the wind.
Right. And not to take away anything from
it's worse to kick. It's worse to kick into it, but it's actually easier to throw if you can zip it like Allen can. So I get that with the strategy with Mac. You're really worried that ball taken off on him when they have the wind at their backs.
And not to take away from the Patriots defense, but even Josh Allen only completed 50% of his passes, right? He was 15 for 30 in this game. So even he, I think, had some bounce with the wind as well. If that is not a windy game out there and Juwan gets torched by Stephon Diggs like that, that's 6 in a normal condition type of game, right? So I think that you have to look at a lot of those types of things as well. But look, they're going to need more from Mac down the line. Mac knows it. Bill knows it. If they're going to win a Super Bowl, if they're going to contend in the AFC, they're not going to do it with 3 pass attempts. They're going to have to get more out of the quarterback than that, and that's okay. Look, you win this game. And I also wanted to mention the Patriots are heading into their bye week. Buffalo has to go play Tom Brady next week.
Yep.
Right. So this is looking, if you're Buffalo, lost to the Patriots this week, lost to Indianapolis a few weeks ago before this, potentially lost on Sunday to Tampa and Tom Brady. And now all of a sudden you got 6 losses on the season to the Patriots 4. That game in week 16 almost doesn't even matter, right? The Bills can win that game in Week 16 against the Patriots in Foxborough.
If they go down to the Bucks, yes,
right,
that's a tough one there.
If the Patriots take care of business with the rest of their games, they're still going to win the division, right? So it's really something that the Bills are in a little bit of a hole here, quite frankly. And this game really puts the Patriots in the driver's seat, not only in the AFC East, but also with the 1 seed, but particularly in the AFC East now, especially when you look at the Bills having to take on Tampa next week.
Yeah, and there's no doubt about that. And the it's
We're asking so much for a rookie to throw more than 3 attempts in an entire game. I love that. I love that comment. I mean, look, they won the game. They did what they needed to do to win the game. But if asking too much out of a rookie is to ask him to throw
look,
passes,
as the season goes on, your expectations change, right?
right?
That's what it comes down to. Is early in the year, you're looking at Mac doing anything and thinking this is good. He looks like an NFL quarterback. That's great. But now you're all of a sudden toying with the idea of being a 1 seed in the playoffs as the favorite, to possibly go to the Super Bowl. At that point, the expectation level goes up. So this isn't Debbie Downer stuff, and it isn't crapping on a guy in a victory. You want to believe that there's enough faith in a quarterback to throw more than 3 passes, regardless of the conditions, if a team is going to be a serious contender going down the line. I mean, we saw, and to flip the script, you saw what happened with a guy like Jared Goff, who had to be incredibly managed by his coach and his team when they faced the Patriots. It was a total mismatch because he just wasn't ready. Mac's not that guy because Mac has already shown more than Goff has in his entire NFL career. Right. But it's always been about kind of just letting him find himself. And it's funny because if their record was worse, you'd probably not worry about wins and losses as much, and you just kind of let Mac play. But now that the wins really matter, you have a game like today where the game plan is to run. Sorry, kid, you're on the shelf. We'll just turn around and hand it off, and that's all we need you to do today. So
yeah, that's they did what they needed to win the game.
They did what they needed to do to win.
But when you talk about it in general, right, in terms of a big picture view, the one analogy I always love is what Daniel Jeremiah says all the time on his Move the Sticks podcast, which is, are you a truck or are you a trailer, right? Are you the one driving the parade float, or are you the one on the trailer and getting pulled, right? And in this game, Mac was a trailer, which is perfectly fine, right? Perfectly fine. And I'm sure when I go back and watch the tape, there will be a little nuances here and there of him changing the mic point or him bringing a guy over here because he has got to block a guy over there and little things like that. And we're not going to make a huge deal out of it, but there will be little chess match type of things, I'm sure, that Mac was able to do in this game to give the Patriots an advantage of the run game. And they were able to run the football pretty much at will the entire game. There were drives where they sputtered because they were running the football, but they were pretty much able to run the football as much as they wanted, when they wanted, and that's all they needed to do, point blank. And I understand that, but eventually Mac will need to be a truck. Eventually he will need to be pull the float. Eventually. In this game, they didn't need it.
Yeah, this was great. And again, going back to Bill, and again, this is, trying to think of all of like Bill's glorious moments that he's had over the time. I think this one's gonna shine on his resume a little bit, just simply based off of the numbers. We've just never seen this. The numbers are eye-popping. Going back to 1974 to see a game like this with 3 passes only, the amount of percentage. I think it was this is the highest percentage of run plays in a game this millennium, which is insane. In 21 years, no team has run the ball as much as the Patriots ran it tonight. So again, a game unlike any game that we'd seen tonight.
We got some trash talk from the Bills side of things. Sean McDermott just now saying this in his press conference. Let's not give more credit than we need to give Bill Belichick in this one. So McDermott throwing some shade at Bill, which I think is fascinating, just looking at the fact that Bill just schooled you on situational football and how to handle the conditions. But look, this is not surprising to me. this Buffalo fan base, these Buffalo coaches, these Buffalo players, they all thought they were going to win this football game tonight. They all thought the Patriots were pretenders. Then you get thrown this curveball with the weather conditions. They are a frustrated bunch right now. And McDermott definitely just,
Isn't McDermott like cried last year when he beat the
yeah,
Patriots for the first time because he was so like it meant so much to him? Like, just chill, dude.
yeah,
That's fine.
yeah.
But you know what though? I get it. It is frustrating, and you could see how frustrated he was. He had an anger timeout late in the game, which was really costly, just because he was so pissed off. You could tell that this got to him because it's like it's embarrassing. It's embarrassing to have the ball
Yeah.
just rammed down your throat like that. The narrative after the game is like, wow, Bill just did that to you. So he's going to wear this one for a little bit.
Oh, and too that McDermott tomorrow morning, he's going into Brandon Beane, the general manager of the Bills office, and he's saying if we don't get heavier on defense, if we don't get some bigger guys in here on defense, even if they're guys, look, the Patriots do this to a degree sometimes too. Even if they're like Devon Godshaws and Carl Davises of the world, where some games they play a ton, other games they don't play much, right? But they're situational players that in these types of matchups against the Colts, against the Patriots, when teams that can run the football, we'll see what they look like against Tampa Bay next week after Leonard Fournette just ran for 4 touchdowns in that game this past was that this past week or 2 weeks ago? I can't remember. We'll see what this Bills team looks like against another team that can really run the football and out muscle you and out physical you in the trenches. You know that Buffalo is going to have to address this. They're going to draft or sign a 325-pound defensive tackle at some point, right? And try to make up for some of this. But you look at just their entire roster on defense in the front seven, outside of Tremaine Edmonds, who is a bigger guy, but more of an athletic freak, kind of like a Jamie Collins type, not really Dante Hightower much. Matt Milano basically got pulled off the field at times tonight because he's so undersized that he was just getting ran over by the Patriots. I mean, there's just no girth to this defense whatsoever.
And there's nothing worse than that.
Crazy, right? Because he doesn't have the personnel, right? He doesn't have the people. He doesn't have the horses.
It's the most being on the other side of it, there's nothing worse for your psyche as a player or as a coach than just being pushed around. And that's how you feel. And as you said, they're demoralized on the other side. That's what you feel like when you get pushed around for 60 minutes. And that's what happened tonight. And it's almost funny. It's almost funny that the Patriots went out, and it was like I had a friend on a text chain comparing it to Larry Bird's left-handed game in Portland. Like,
right.
Hey, let's see if we can win this one just running it. Like, let's see if we can pass 3 times and win this one. What do you think? Like, it's a dare almost.
Yeah.
So this one is tough. Let me ask you, you mentioned you saw Harris in the locker room. People on the chat seem to be torn about whether or not Adrian Phillips was actually hurt or buying them a timeout there late in the game. I saw it was reported Giardi and a couple other people said they were doing ACL tests on that knee. Looking at it, I don't know if that was just to sell it. Does he look like he's okay to you?
We didn't see him after the game, but they ruled him out quickly. Now there was only 2 minutes left in the game or something like that. So you're not really going to put the guy back in the game after that. Adrian Phillips is going to be one we're going to have to monitor moving forward. I don't have a clear, distinct answer right now on whether or not it was serious or not. Matthew Judon did come back in the game.
He did.
He's going to be fine. It sounds like Damien Harris looked totally fine, looked as happy and jolly as could be after the game. So I don't think that's the face or the reaction of a player that feels that he's going to be out for an extended period of time with some sort of injury. So guys like Judon and Harris, I feel like the bye week will do those guys wonders and they'll be fine. We'll have to wait and see on Adrian Phillips. That one to me did look pretty serious. I didn't see exactly what happened to him, but the way that he was reacting to it and the way the trainers were reacting to it was like they saw a legitimate injury happen, or he felt a legitimate injury happen.
Yeah. And just the way it happened, he finished the play, walked around a little bit, and then kind of went down. It was like after he looked like he took a few steps, it felt like a legitimate injury. That would be tough. One, because he's been pretty valuable for them back there.
I thought that missing Kyle Duggar could have really been a game changer in this game. Didn't end up mattering as much just because the way that the game went through. Adrian Phillips did tweet about 40 minutes ago, "Thank you, God." So Maybe he's thanking God
Maybe
for
escaped one.
dodging a bullet, right? I mean, that's if you read between the lines there a little bit. So,
Or maybe he's thanking God for the opportunity to be an NFL player and recognizing his career just ended.
oh no, oh I hope not. He's
I'm
a
not
very
going there.
valuable piece.
I'm hoping, that he came out of that okay.
Yeah,
And that would be good. And again, if it's just a tweak, a little MCL situation, couple weeks might put you back on track to play. Beauty of the bye week. And again, the fortune of the Patriots not being super hurt. Great recharge opportunity here, for this team.
yeah. This late bye was a grind to get here.
It's hard
and,
to,
and you talk to a lot of the players, and it's a gauntlet, right, to go 13 straight games without a bye week.
Yeah, you
But
like
now
that around week 9 or so,
yeah,
middle
but
of the
now that it
season.
hit, I think that it's actually coming at a
It
fantastic
is.
time for them because they're hot. They can recharge, they can rejuvenate their bodies and remain hot coming out of the bye. But even most importantly, I would say, is you have so much tape on yourselves at this point of the season. You have 13 games. You kind of know who you are, right? You know your strengths, you know your weaknesses. If the bye happens earlier on in the season, there might be some anomalies that are just happening because of matchups or just happening because of situation and game script and things like that, that are a little bit off the beaten path. And then you hope the coaching staff and a guy like Bill Belichick would be able to sift through that a little bit, right? Maybe more so than us, certainly. But now we have 13 games of concrete evidence of they're good at this, they're bad at that. This is something they could improve on. This is something that they needed to lean into more because it's a strength of theirs. And now they can come out of the bye week and self-scout and self-evaluate even more so, and really be able to come out of this with a great identity. I feel like of this team, and know exactly what the core group of plays and fundamentals and things like that and techniques that they're good at. So it'll be fun to see how they come out after the bye, because I do think there is some hidden aspects of the playbook, maybe offensively, some things that maybe they can pull out that they haven't pulled out quite yet. Schemes certainly for Jonnu Smith, guys like Nelson Aguilar, excuse me, those types of players. Maybe there's another level to unlock, I would say, in their usage in the offense and their role in the offense. But look, this is going to be one we talk about for a long, long time.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, this is going to be. Remember that game where they threw
Right.
only 3 passes, and you're 100% right. I saw it. I saw Belichick actually in the corridor there underneath the stadium, talking to some people, and he had a huge kind of
He's beaming.
giddy smile on his face. Like, we just beat these guys with
Can
3
you believe we
passes?
did that?
Yeah.
It is. It's one of those. It's
A
one of those games.
a lot of noise too from the Patriots locker room. You don't normally hear that type of loudness by the time the media gets in there. We're not allowed in the locker room anymore, but by the time the media gets into the interview rooms now, usually they've hit the showers already and kind of cleared out a little bit, and the atmosphere has kind of died down to a degree. Not today. You could hear tooting, hollering, screaming, hell yeses, the whole 9 yards,
Yeah.
right? I mean, this team is jazzed up about this win. They're jacked up. They kind of feel like they just bullied. Like I said, they bullied the little brother
Yeah.
again. On national TV on their own field, they went out there and they beat them up and punched them around the playground a little bit again. And I think that is, they're riding that wave right now. That
Yeah.
not just the 7-game winning streak, but just tonight in a vacuum, being able to do that, I think was you could hear it.
It's refreshing to it's they like each other, and
Yeah.
they like what they're doing, and they have each other's backs, and they believe in it, so it's a fun team to cover in this regard, because it's just got a vibe, like we went through those last couple of years of Brady and everything being serious and everyone being grumpy and everything being mad. There's definitely a good vibe to what's going on here. I want a quick shout out to the viewers here. We're up over 1,000 this late in the night. Live, people have been in and out all night. But thanks for hanging with us. It's late. We'll keep it going a little bit. If you throw something in the chat here, we'll try to get to it. Evan's got some writing and some work to do, so we'll only linger for a few more minutes, then we're going to wrap it up. But if you have anything you want to ask, we can take a quick peek ahead. I know we've got the bye. The Colts on the other end of it, a really interesting team. They're the #1 scoring offense in the NFL right now, and that run game is insane. So again,
Yeah.
what's interesting about tonight is this is now the second straight game against you had this 4-game stretch circled on the calendar, Tennessee, Buffalo, bye, Indy, Buffalo as kind of this critical make or break moment. But because of Tennessee playing with massive injuries all over the place and really unable to do anything in that game, in a game that Patriots won by a lot, but they actually kind of played like crap and got bullied, and Tennessee ran the ball a ton on them. And then this game in Buffalo with extreme weather conditions. We actually have 2 straight weeks where you didn't learn much. You haven't learned as much as you would like about these guys going forward. Indy's going to be an interesting one. And again, we'll have a lot of time to preview that matchup, but just quickly looking ahead to that one, your thoughts?
So because I'm a degenerate, I actually watched the Bucks Colts tape from last
Already?
week already this morning at the hotel waiting to come to this game because I get out in front a little bit, right? So I watched Tom Brady against this Colts defense, and I think that's a really fascinating tape to study because Belichick said it going into the Week 4 game against them. They run our offense, right? They basically run our offense, especially from a passing game standpoint. So you look at some of the things that they were able to do against Indianapolis, the zones. They're a very zone heavy team. They were able to kind of flood some of those zone concepts and get Gronk, especially, had a huge game. Gronk had, I think, 140 yards or something like that against Indianapolis. So I think it's going to be a big tight ends game. You're going to want to high low the middle of the field, get the tight end up the seam, and work things off of that, right? Not just hitting Hunter Henry or Johnny Smith on a big play up the field, but then actually throwing stuff underneath at Indianapolis off of that, right? You carry the vertical, now we're going to flood it with the slant or flood it with the under route coming underneath you, and you can't stay in both places, right? You can't take away the short pass and take away the seam. You have to pick one or the other, and playing that cat and mouse game will be helpful. Now you look at the way that they can run the ball, the way they can scheme it offensively. It does worry me a lot in this matchup because essentially they're running the 2017 Philadelphia playbook, right? This is a run first offense that incorporates play action, RPO concepts, that sort of thing. They attack the middle of the field. They do a lot of things with their quarterback that he's sort of just we used the trucker trailer comparison earlier. He's kind of a trailer in a lot of these plays, Carson Wentz, where the scheme is doing a lot of the work for him, right? And he's just kind of hitting the open guy. And those types of teams that can really scheme it up offensively like that have given the Patriots problems in the past when it becomes defeating your chess match, right? Defeating your pieces against our pieces. So if you look at this Jonathan Taylor-led rushing attack, they can do it all. And that's how problematic too, right? You have a team that can run outside zone, or they can run trap or wham inside, or they can run some different things on they can run gap or man concepts or zone concepts. They can run RPOs, they can run play action, they can stretch you horizontally. They do a lot of things offensively that are going to give the Patriots schematic problems.
They are. And again, a guy like Taylor is, he's a perfect combo because, he's a big back, but he's got breakaway speed too. So you really got to be disciplined with him. And you're right, with Wentz, it's unspectacular, but again, it's safe and it's schemed. His touchdown to interception ratio is outstanding. I think it's his outside of Kirk Cousins, he might have the best ratio in the league. It's 22-5 touchdowns to interceptions. So they really don't. They really manage that situation, and they're not putting a lot of pressure on him to win the game for them. And again, as you said, kind of similar to here. So you are looking in the mirror a little bit. It really comes down to
Alex will enjoy it though, because it's another math versus real football game, right? Because Frank Reich is a huge analytics math guy. He's going to go for it on fourth down. He's going to play aggressive. They're a big too high team, right? The too high generation. That's a real renaissance in football right now, is playing those too high safety shells and then inserting or buzzing the safety into the box to take away the run. But with a few weeks ago with Tampa, they obviously against Tampa, it's a totally different matchup from a receiver standpoint, right? When you have Evans and Godwin and Gronk and all these guys out there, Tampa playing too high makes some sense. But with Tampa every single time they showed too high safeties. Brady's alert, let's call the run play, right? And let's hand it off to Leonard Fournette and let's run it for 8 yards per carry. So it's going to be a really fun matchup. I think a lot of the ways this Colts defense is undersized and kind of more finesse also in some ways, just in the way that they are built. Guys like Darius Leonard, for example, reminds me a ton of like Tremaine Edmonds and Matt Milano. Super athlete, always around the football, can really fly around, but is he really the guy that's going to take on a block, right? Is he really the guy that when Shaq Mason pulls through the hole and he's going to block up Darius Leonard, is Darius Leonard going to be able to pop him and shed that block? Probably not. They're probably going to be able to run over the Colts.
That's what they're going to try to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, no doubt. So again, we have a bye week. Evan has a ton of stuff to do. So we're gonna let him do that stuff. We will say to you good fellows out there, again, thank you for watching. There's a ton of coverage throughout the week. What are you guys doing with the pod this week, Evan?
We'll do the pod on Wednesday. We'll probably only do one this week just because of the bye, but we might try to sneak another one in there.
That's fine.
Okay, we'll do two.
What? No, that's all good. I do want to remind people as well. We are covering the Celtics out in Los Angeles as well with late games. We've got a whole cast of characters out there. Nick, Josue, Sherrod out in LA. So for those of you Celtics fans out there, we are fully covered. Bobby, Jimmy, and I will have it covered from here, but we're going to be live after the games, as we are after all games. It doesn't matter that it's West Coast. So 2 late nights for those of you. We've got people in the UK right now saying it's 6 a.m. Well, it'll be 7 or 8 a.m. for the post-game shows and, following the Lakers. So join us for that if you want. And then, as we said, Pat's coverage throughout the week right here. Please subscribe to the YouTube channel if you haven't already, Patriots Press Pass, and check out Evan Lazar, CLNSmedia.com. We will have some stuff up on the site very soon about tonight's game. And then again, some more stuff tomorrow. And then here's the address for the YouTube channel. If you haven't subscribed, please hit that subscribe button, subscribe, do all that stuff, help support our content. It allows us to bring it to you as much as possible. Evan, last final thoughts before we go?
It was weird. It was fun. Let's never do that again.
That was fun. You know what, though? And I'll say this for everyone out there, we spent a year with the Patriots realizing that nothing really mattered and not having that tension and not having that kind of feeling in your stomach when you're watching the game. It's nice to have it back. This was one of those tense games that hinged on very little, and you had a playoff sort of vibe. It was super important. It mattered, and each play mattered. And you could see people were really locked into it. And obviously you can see by the number of people who hung around to watch, people are still jacked up and juiced, about the win. So yeah, good win. Good stuff. Thanks to Evan Lazar, best guy in the business as always. Again, CLNSmedia.com. Go check it out. We will see you guys. Evan will see you in a couple days with his Patriots Beat podcast. Good night.